video, we're going to talk about how to edit and change your default tax profile. We're then going to talk about how that default tax profile applies to your estimate costings. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about markup redistribution. So to start, to edit the tax profile, we're going to go ahead and click the My Business section here. And under Business Setup down here, we'll get our tax rates. Now, quick thing to note here is that you'll want to speak to your local tax office in order to get the most up-to-date version and what is required based off of your tax regime. But from here, we're going to then edit our tax profile. To start, I'm going to click the Edit here. And a couple things that basically I'm just going to work left to right, but starting at the top here, we can change our tax profile name. We can give it a short code as well, and that'll all show in the estimate costings. And from here, I now have the ability to change the code. So this might be, as example, PST or GST or CST, whatever that short code might be. Next, we have the description of what that might be. So again, might be provincial sales tax, state sales tax, county sales tax, and so on and so forth. Next, though, we're going to select the rates. And again, you'll want to speak to your local tax office to make sure you get all the correct rates. Next here, we have an exempt line. So we need to create an exempt line for both income and expenses. And again, the system will want this at a very minimum in order to allow you to save your tax profile. And on that, we then have our two different types here. So we're going to have tax on income and tax on expense. And again, you're going to want to make sure you set up both. So here is an example. You can see I'm applying the same tax rates to both income as well as expenses. And income will obviously affect things like your estimate costings, whereas expenses will affect things like purchase orders and whatnot. So again, you want to make sure you have both lines for income and lines for expenses, and making sure that both the income and expenses have tax exempt lines as well. From here, we get onto the different categories. So we have material labor, or MATLAB, equipment, and subcontractor. And this will relate later on in the estimate costings, where each line item you'll be able to designate what category of line item that is. So i.e., is it material, is that line item labor, and so on and so forth. Now, in specific jurisdictions, we know that certain one of these categories may not attract particular taxes. So if that's the case, you just simply deselect it. And then again, when we get to that estimate costings line item, we'll then select which category of item it is, and Buildxact will automatically calculate the applicable tax based off of, again, this default tax profile. From here, though, I'm just going to select the same taxes across both income expenses for all of our categories. And last but not least here, I can add in additional lines if I need to. I can also delete lines. But once I'm done, I'm just going to click this green tick box here, and we're about done. One quick thing I want to note, though, in this screen is I can always click on my tax profiles here. And at this stage, you'll be able to see that we have a link to our FAQ articles, where we do have a lot more content related to this just to further assist. Next, though, I'm going to jump to our estimates area. And one key thing to note is that that tax profile that I've edited will not apply retrospectively to any existing estimates. So for this example, I need to go ahead and copy an existing estimate here in order for that tax profile to be applied. And now that tax profile will be applied to this estimate. Now, there may be certain situations where particular estimates and the taxation required therein might actually be different to your default tax profile. And if you do find that there's one-off cases in these examples, then what we can do is under our Estimate Details tab, we can actually go into our Estimate Details area, and we can actually further customize the tax profile that will be applied exclusively to this estimate here. So again, if a particular job takes you into a different taxational jurisdiction, you can go in and you can further customize that in this example. For here, though, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click Save. And I now want to go over to our estimate costings to now show you how this is applied into our itemized costings. So here I'm going to select Permit. And I'm just going to work left to right on a few key things to touch on here. And again, as I've mentioned, you have the different type here. So if this line item is one of these types, you can then select it. And if I've deselected a particular tax to be applied, then Buildxact will automatically recalculate the appropriate level of tax, again, based off of your default tax profile. From here, though, I also want to select this blue box here. And what this will allow me to do is if this item is going to be tax exempt or tax-free income, I can actually go ahead and select that. And then from there, it will apply 0% tax to it, which will then again be omitted from here. But for now, though, I'm going to make sure we have some tax applied on. And I'm going to carry on now and switch over to talking a bit about redistribution. Now from here specifically, what I've done in this example is I've applied a 10% overall markup to my entire job. And so I can check that because I can now click this blue box underneath quote total, and it will then show me the estimated cost is $1,000. I've applied 10% markup, so therefore it's going to add $100 on. Currently we have 0 redistributions, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So from here, it's then calculating it to $1,100. It's applying the tax, and now we have the quote total for that particular item, including markup and including tax. However, if I go to my second category here, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and toggle on our allowance items. And specifically what that is going to do is it's going to take these items and actually put them into a different area of the quote letter. Now, when I do that, and on the quote letter, as you'll see, we'll automatically take the markup that's been applied to that item and redistribute it. So when I toggle on the allowance item here, you'll see this little C button will pop on, and this specifically is telling Buildxact how we're going to redistribute the markup. In this case, it's going to take whatever markup is applied to this item, and it's going to redistribute it across the category. And I can check that because I can click again this blue box under quote total, and you'll see here this is a $100 item. Here's the original 10% markup that's been applied to it. And here is a redistribution. So it's been $5 of the $10 from the previous item in line 2.1. $5 has been aligned to 2.2, and $5 has been aligned to 2.3. And we can check that by clicking the show breakdown. So you can see exactly where that redistribution is coming from. And again, the quote total. I can at the same time, I can click it again, and it will then come up with this E button. And what that's going to allow me to do now is take the $5, or the $10 rather, of markup that was applied there and redistribute it across the entire estimate. So again, if I want to double check this, I can click this blue box, and I can see here that now I have 83 cents of markup because markup has now been applied to the item underneath the permit. Also, one more thing I can do is I can click this again, and this now is not redistributing the markup. So that is going to leave the markup here for this specific item. And that'll be important for reasons I'll show you in a minute. But let's go ahead and toggle on these allowance items for this one, just to show you this final idea here, and just again reaffirming that this is clicking on the category. One quick note to be aware of is that if I have all 3 items that are going to redistribute in the category, well, Buildxact, what it'll do is it'll automatically default to actually redistribute all those items across the estimate. And the reason for that is right now I've told Buildxact that all 3 items need to have markup redistributed within the category, but because all of them are selecting the same status, it's going to by default then have to apply it across the estimate. So here, again, I'm just going to turn this one off. And now we're going to go to our quote letter, and I want to highlight one key thing for you related to all the stuff we're talking about here today. So next we're going to go to print options, and specifically down here, I'm going to go ahead and tell Buildxact that I want to show the markup percentage on the allowance list. So this is going to give me the ability to actually be very transparent with my clients as to what markup has been applied to those allowance items. So next I'm going to click the print button, and I'm just going to quickly print the quote off. And scrolling down here, again, you can see here that this item, I told Buildxact to not redistribute the markup, so therefore it's getting the 30% markup because it's incurring the original 10% from there plus 10% from each of those items. But here it's only going to show the estimated cost of that. And further down, if I've shown enough info, you'll also see again that this is redistributed, so the markup has been applied to 2.1 there. And that's it for today's video. Again, absolutely feel free to check out some of our FAQs. We have a lot more content related to this.